Right. Hi and welcome to reading number 7. And I hope you enjoyed so far all the different themes I've been reading about in that book, Orgasmic Blueprint, tools for pleasure, consent and desire. And I would like to read today about the 3-minute game. That's my favorite game to play with. That's changed my life and the life of many others. And there will be as well the video description of the 3-minute game somewhere around the video or in the video description. And let's begin. All right. The 3-minute game. You can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. That's from Plato. The 3-minute game is the perfect tool to help us become fluent in practicing consent. It's an extremely fun practice involving touch. And as you know, touch comes in all forms and isn't always sexual. Therefore, you really don't have to be lovers to play. You can play with family members, friends, or as a practitioner with your clients. And I'm sure you will be astonished at what becomes possible through playing. It's much more than just a fun or superficial game. Although very simple to play, it takes you to the very roots of who you authentically are. And I mean that. The 3-minute game isn't about performing a specific kind of touch or doing anything that doesn't feel right or comfortable. Instead, it encourages you to feel into what's true, right, and genuinely pleasurable for you, and allow that to guide you. To follow the pull rather than the push. Not only does the quality of your touch and the amount of pleasure you receive through being touched dramatically increase, it helps clarify exactly what you're drawn towards and want, and how you put your trust in and value these aspects of yourself. This game highlights your boundaries, enables you to express your limits, and allows you to navigate the nature of consent. Much of this insight becomes apparent when you notice the embodied difference in feeling when you receive and give. By playing, it'll become crystal clear that giving and receiving has nothing to do with who is in action, but it determines who the action is for. Playing the 3-minute game doesn't replace other interactions with your partner, but brings clarity to where it's difficult to ask for what you want, where it's difficult to say no, when self-care is necessary, and where shadow strategies emerge. When you wake up your dormant ability to tune into the information your nerves are relaying to your brain, not only do you wake up the potential to feel more pleasure in your hands, but the rest of your body too. When you combine the sensory awakening, so waking up the hands, tuning into your pleasure in the moment without a goal, with the empowerment the 3-minute game brings, you can and your lover experience ecstatic heights like never before. You can call this tantra, sacred sexuality, or whatever you like. The fact is, there is no limitation in the moment of pleasure we can feel, and this simple practice expands your capacity for love and transformation. It works best when you set aside the time to indulge in it, taking in turns and playing for at least 30 minutes and up to as long as you like. I suggest playing in a room or place where the atmosphere feels comfortable and right for all players. And I recommend avoiding the bedroom or laying down at the first few times to avoid any sexual association until you become more adept at playing. Be curious and allow yourself to explore. Then notice how your learnings influences and enrich your daily life as you progress over time and as you uncover elements of your being and tune into new depth. The 3-minute game orients from professional life coach and spiritual director Harry Feddes, who worked as an instructor at the Body School of Electric in Oakland, USA. Working mostly with gay men, in one of his workshops, Power, Surrender and Intimacy, he noticed that most people found it very difficult to ask for what they really want. Harris was also inspired by the 13th century Sufi poet Rumi's quote, "You must ask for what you really want, don't go back to sleep." What was this spiritual master getting at? How do we awaken when we ask for what we want? Fettis began exploring this quality by inventing the 3-minute game. He realized that also asking for what you want shouldn't or sounded simple. It was a difficult thing for most to do, and this game was gave participants an equal share of time to receive what they wanted, so what they desired. Through playing and observing other players, he soon realized the depth we can go to through equal exchange and the level of transformation and awakening possible when we perceive power dynamics in a different way. This happens when we give our gift of power from a place of love and care and feel gratitude when this is reciprocated. The game guides us from embodied and grounded well-being to the most evolved state of human can experience. I repeat that sentence. The game guides us from embodied and grounded well-being to the most evolved state any human can experience, that of spiritual connection. I was missing. The original question of the 3-minute games are, first, what do you want to do to me for 3 minutes? And second, what do you want me to do to you for 3 minutes? And as you can imagine, doing is a very broad field. There are so many things we can do. And for this reason, we adapted this game from Harry Fettis into a purely somatic version of narrowing in all actions down to touch. So what do you want, or how do you want to touch me for 3 minutes, and how do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes? Before playing the 3-minute game, so before you begin, take a few minutes to land in your body. This simply means bringing your awareness away from your outer world of distraction to your inner world. In doing so, you guide the working mind's focus away from making meaning derived from our environment to claim. In doing so, you guide the working mind focus away from making meaning derived from your environment to calmly noticing your body and what's in the moment. You can practice this by feeling an object in your hand for a few minutes while noticing the sensory inflow of the direct route. Do you feel more grounded now? More centered? Do you feel that you've landed? If so, you're ready to play. The feeling of landing, being grounded and steady in self, is why we put so much emphasis in the beginning on the sensory inflow and how it all works. Now we can harvest the nectar of waking up pleasure in your hands. So how to play the 3-minute game in relation to touch. Take turns asking each other the 2 questions, which with each question you make an offer to the other person. These 2 questions are both offered by one person for the other to make a request. When requests are made by one person, can you or can I, they need a I can or a you can from the other before consent is established and anything happens. The 4 dynamics of the 3-minute game. So the 3-minute game is a very simple tool to help you tune into a playfully express your authentic desire and limits in a safe container. By playing, you explore the 4 different dynamics found within the engagement zone of the Somatic Consent Engagement System. And we talk about that much more later. Each of the 4 engagement zones provides a different angle of insights into yourself and others as you play and relate. You'll find that each of them brings different qualities to your experience of touch and connection. They open up the possibility for much more transparency and ease, confidence and empowerment, consent, playfulness, and intimacy. You'll notice they also bring unconscious survival shadow strategies to the surface. This might include falling into the role of people-pleasing, being a martyr, feeling entitled, being greedy, pushing for or stealing what is not yours to take, or other behavior you might have habitually lapsed into and might not have even been aware of before. They give us the opportunity to acknowledge these parts of ourselves and integrate them into personal growth. All four engagement zones guide to an interpersonal space that people can share, one of spiritual surrender together. So these are the four dynamics you will explore within the engagement zones. You refers to the reader, they refers to the other person. Oops, the sun is coming around the corner here. You do what you want. You are in action for yourself. You do what they want. You are in action for them. They do what they want. They are in action for themselves. And they do what you want. You're in action for you. So each person takes turns to make the two offers to the other. Each person states their desire when it's their turn to make a request. Each person takes time to reflect on whatever they feel within their limits towards what they are being asked to give before answering authentically and giving permission, coming to an agreement. So how do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes? Person A makes an offer. How do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes? Person B makes a request. Can you give me a foot massage? Person A reflects, is that within my limits? Yeah, I'm willing to give that kind of touch, and answers accordingly, either agreeing to the request, I can do that, expressing their limits such as only if you wash your feet, or saying no if it isn't what they're willing to do, it's beyond their limits. Person B respects person A's limits, and an agreement is made by both for person A to go into action for person B, so for them. How do you want to touch me for 3 minutes? So person A makes an offer. How do you want to touch me for 3 minutes? Person B makes a request. Can I feel your back? Person A reflects, is that within my limits? And I'm willing to allow that kind of touch, and answers accordingly, either giving permission to the request, yes you can, and answers expressing their limits such as yes, but don't scratch, pinch or poke me, or saying no if it isn't what they are willing to allow, it's beyond their limits. And person B respects person A's limits and has permission to go into action for themselves. It's important to keep your attention on what is actually agreed upon. Sometimes we might have an urge to change the dynamics and follow the impulses, thinking, oh, I'm sure they like me too. Touch them in another way or in another place, so don't. This is actually something you have agreed on. The game teaches us to take turns. It shows you when to put your own desires first and when to put your desires aside, so that you or the other can relax into the action when it's for you and enjoy exactly what is being asked for. So in this part of the book there is a little map about the 3-minute game, and you find the video description about the 3-minute game in the video. I prefer to be intuitive when I touch. Will this disrupt the natural flow? Some people are skeptical when first introduced to the dynamics of the 3-minute game. Many of us believe we know ourselves and our preferences pretty well by now and may dig our heels in when an alternative is offered. This is all normal and natural. We all want to do things our way. The 3-minute game will help you to do this more. I'm often asked, doesn't it make touching more awkward? How can I relax and be embodied when I have to think about what I'm allowed to do or not, or I'm told I prefer to be in the flow when touching. Or I can already intuitively feel if someone is right or wrong. The 3-minute game isn't meant to replace the natural flow of touch within your relationships. It's a training tool to help you expand your present habits of touch. Think of it more as a doorway to keep relaxation, insights increased, and pleasure and greater empowerment. Firstly, it provides the safety necessary for both people to fully relax. You create a space where you can truly let go. What happens when you feel safe? You no doubt allow yourself to be authentically as you are, or in other words, you are in the most optimal place to really flow with what feels true and right for you. Desires ever change, and we only ever live in the here and now. If you don't feel safe, you most likely know what you don't want. You can only know what you really want in the moment when you feel safe. Secondly, during the game, we learn the dynamics of interaction and differentiate between who is doing the action and who is the action actually for, as well as clarifying any problems separating the direct route from the indirect route of pleasure. Playing the 3-minute game also gives you real insights into what is happening with the person you are in contact with. Naturally, touching someone is by no means only about one person, so both people have to want to play. If we only fixated on what one person wants and doesn't it be a pretty one-sided interaction, void of any real connection or possibility for intimate exploration. One Somatic Consent Engagement System practitioner shared that playing with different people helped her explain it using different terminologies, and that each time she plays, she becomes more and more confident in an embodied way, adding to her ability to flow with what she desires. Her partner was a little unsure about playing at first, wondering whatever she was trying to trick him into something, or worried that he'll feel judged. After playing, he discovered for himself what her enthusiasm was all about, felt the benefits for herself, enjoyed owning and voicing his truths, and is now as excited to play as she is. Being intuitive when touching helps, but this would be relying poorly on the indirect route and your own perception of how things are. Doesn't it make much more sense to understand how it is for your partner by listening to their own direct experience? Here there is no room for presumption. It is deeply illuminating to share your truth with another person, and when we feel heard and seen, we can more easily relate to the other. Connection, bonding, and intimacy results from this. Once your skin and nervous system has embodied a new understanding of touch, you and your partner will be able to expand together to so much more natural and authentic than before. As you can see, also the 3-minute game may question certain pre-assumptions and habits rather than complicate your experience of touch. It reteaches you to deeply let go so that you can expand your present experience of touch by learning how to receive and give phenomenal pleasure. Before beginning the 3-minute game, it's fundamental to know the following. Asking for permission, expressing limits, and making agreements together are an integral part of the Somatic Consent Engagement System. The whole system won't function without this basic framework. The conditions are not about teaching other people about their boundaries or about pushing others in any way whatsoever. We aren't able to go into conscious action without permission, agreements, and the acknowledgement of boundaries. So permission and agreements define consent. Our spoken limits protect our boundaries. This fundamental aspect of consent are not about what one person wants. Your preferences, personality, perception, and personal philosophy have nothing to do with this framework. There are no pedantic rules or unnecessary structure that restricts you from following your flow. And on the contrary, it's about tuning in what is real and create a container where both are safe to follow their flow because both know what will happening. Soon we will explore exactly how the 2 questions in the 3-minute game enable you to maintain the natural flow of touch. This is an experience I later refer to as the apex. Question: is the 3-minute game about sex? The 3-minute game isn't about learning sexual techniques or specific things to spice up your established routine. It's an exploration of self, of touch, and the connection and intimacy possible with another person. Knowing and expressing what you want and don't want makes such a difference to who you are on every level. It's an entirely new way of experiencing yourself and relating, and this means that your sexual experience will naturally be infused with a richness you never encountered before. The need for touch and the need for sex. The need for touch, and in particular touch that isn't sexual, is fundamental to our well-being. It nourishes a different part of us than sexual activity does. There are many different ways to experience touch that aren't about sex, such as hugging your kids and friends and holding hands, having a massage, or cuddling. So touch is a human need, and that helps us experience other people and connect with them emotionally. Your nervous system also needs stimulus on your skin to function properly. If you don't get enough touch, the nervous system's capacity for co-regulation by coming into contact with others into a state of relaxation is diminished. So your amygdala, that is responsible for your fight-flight responses, it monitors your environment so that you can avoid potential danger. When it perceives a potential threat, stress hormones are released, and through essential and importantly consensual touch, either alone or with another, oxytocin is released in the limbic system. And oxytocin not only increases connection to others, but inhibits the release of stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. This balances the nervous system, enabling you to self or co-regulate and restore a sense of ease and well-being. This is the reason why in challenging moments, the practicing of waking up the hands by feeling an object gives you the self-soothing capacity to calm your nervous system whenever you need to. The need for sex is more accurately a need to express ourselves as sexual beings, which we do through how we express our gender, who we find attractive, and our sexual preferences. It's not the need for a specific sexual activity. Your need for touch can't be met through sex, and your need to express yourself as a sexual being can't be met through touch because they're different. And they're different human needs like breathing and drinking. You can't quench your need for water by breathing air and vice versa. There are breatharians, they can, but I'm not sure if that's possible for everyone. Sex and touch are related to 2 different parts of the brain, and one is the emotional touch center, the other the reward center. Sex can work without emotion, and when it's locked in the internal fantasy world. And feeling can work without any sex at all. Sure, both combined together give a completely different meaning, and that's why many stories are based on the conflation. So when you know how to distinguish between these different needs, as you experiment, you'll discover deeper layers of your essential self and bring much more awareness and flow to sexual play. So one little part, and the 3-minute game and the direct route of pleasure. So play is the highest form of research, Albert Einstein. After awakening my own sensual inflow, I began implementing the 3-minute game in empowerment sessions with students and clients in my professional practice and came up with the same results over and over again. When I asked, what do you find pleasurable and how do you want me to touch you? I soon realized that almost nobody could relate to this question and most looked confused, responding with, just do something. Or, you're the expert. Don't you know what to do? Or, nobody ever asked me that before. I don't know. With the second offer, how do you want to touch me? Most people would go completely blank. If they didn't respond, they mostly did so to get a reaction, say something such as, I want to tickle you, or I want to slap you, or I'm afraid of what I do if I could. They often wanted to pinch, hair pull and dominate. Most would stare at my face while doing so to see how and if I respond. And sometimes people try to turn me on in order to allow themselves to be turned on. So using my turn on as a justification to allow themselves to feel. And others would be too ashamed to feel themselves when touching me or be afraid of getting turned on and so avoided it altogether. So while playing within this dynamics with clients, they sometimes did something so knowingly caused me pain. I purposefully tried not to react within my limits to make their response agenda obvious to them, and all these interactions rang a bell. It was extremely interesting to recognize my own previous habits of reaction in other people, and I realized I responded in similar ways when I started to experience with the dynamic of my action for my own pleasure. Often going into action to get a reaction. This was before I'd embodied the direct route and was still functioning purely from my working mind and its meaning-making dynamic within an agenda. Bad me. I became clear that most people had difficulties with the two offers of the 3-minute game and the 4 different dynamics they opened up when both take turns. And it became obvious to me why. The direct route is dormant for almost all of us. This means that most of us are unaware that we can receive through our own action for our own pleasure. And so most of us engage and relate within the indirect route as a default. The direct route, the vital element to spiritual growth via embodied empowerment. The direct route of sensory inflow must be embodied before playing the 3-minute game. Otherwise, we easily fall into our usual automatic behavior of doing or giving something due to the urge of recognition, appreciation, to be loved and to belong. When we do this, we simultaneously bypass what we actually want, desire, and ring true to us. Whenever our go-to habit is one of doing or one of giving, will depend on where exactly we are stuck. In order to be able to fully receive through our own action, you first need to pause and stop giving. And this concept is comparable to finding your true yes. So when we stop automatically saying yes, it enables us to find our true no. And only when we're fully aware of what feels like a no, we can know our true yes. So when you stop giving, your focus can be directed to the inflow and you will feel the difference between the two routes. If you don't know how it feels to receive while you are in action, doing an action for yourself here, it is difficult or nearly impossible to put yourself second while in action and giving for someone else. If we can't differentiate, the two dynamics get hopelessly mixed up. The Wheel of Consent by Betty Martin was also inspired by Fedde's 3-minute game, and it helps clarify the difference between giving and receiving, as well as defining who is doing the action and who is it for. And as already mentioned, when we are aware, check if that was the right page. Yes, it was. When we are aware of who is in action or who an action is for, the doer isn't always the giver, but can't be the receiver too. While very effective as a teaching aid for consent, I realized that the formula offered by the Wheel of Consent needed a substantial expansion, and I saw the potential to guide spiritual growth related to power and surrender from an intimate place of love and care. After 6 years of mentorship with Betty Martin, 6 months of background interviews and sessions with Harry Feddes, and this realization in mind, I developed the Somatic Consent Engagement System to include these vital elements. The Somatic Consent Engagement System enables you to take all the fragmented parts of yourself and realize your wholeness. It guides you to become both grounded in self and spiritually expansive. So when the direct route is activated, the 2 questions in the 3-minute game guide both players to personal empowerment and an experience of spiritual connection. The Somatic Consent Engagement System provides a logical and transparent bridge to your ability to perceive the sensory inflow of the direct route, your capacity to recognize and integrate your personal shadows related to the indirect route, understanding when you are not asking for what you really want, or acknowledging that you are in fact have limits when you give. Absolutely empowerment of self. Surrender to all you are, and through this become a vessel of receiving. Gift your power from a genuine place of love and care to support others in surrendering to all they are. So all my research point to this combination, providing the perfect balance of personal and spiritual growth, accessible to everyone. So this version of the 3-minute game is meant for two-way touch within personal relationships. It plays out quite differently in a professional setting. We will talk about the different dynamics later in chapter 5. All right, this was it for today. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please feel absolutely free to put that in the section below. And I love to see you tomorrow in the next reading, and have a beautiful day. And maybe it's time to start to find a buddy to play the 3-minute game. All right. Thanks for being here today, and love yourself. Ciao.